Another extremely popular tool, mostly used for vulnerability assessment, is Nessus. Nessus is an open source software kit that has commercial subscriptions available for additional feature sets. And Nessus is actually a very unique security tool because it actually uses a client-server architecture. And basically, the server will be installed on a central location. And that server will house vulnerability definition information, authentication, and a lot of other services and features that are very useful to a large-scale scanning scenario. It has interfaces that rely on both command line and graphical interfaces, and there are actually many variations of the graphical interface available. Basically, it has a modular, meaning a series of things that can be pieced together and are collected in that database of current exploits for various operating systems and applications and even network-level appliances. Nessus uses a scripting language called Nasal that allows for plugins to be created or added to the system at any point. So it's a very extensible, very flexible system. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of vulnerability plugins and are updated on a very regular basis. And there are even third-party plugins available for very specific applications or targets. Nessus does require a pretty high level of knowledge and understanding to use the tool effectively, but what you'll find most people do is go in and simply select all possible exploits and run the whole database against a target. And in order to have that flexibility and take advantage of a lot of the features, you need to go a little bit beyond that and understand more about the tool. We can actually go out to the web and download live exploit code and turn that in, and using the Nasal scripting language, turn that into a vulnerability assessment module for Nessus. So let's take a quick look at some of the basic functionality of the Nessus utility. So the first thing that we have to do is actually start up the Nessus server, which we do by using Nessus D. So it's actually going to go through the process of loading all the plugins, and while it's doing that, I'm actually going to go ahead and fast forward time so you don't have to sit here and watch these numbers increment. So at this point, we've got the server up and running, and we're ready to actually log into the server using the Nessus client, which is initialized by simply typing Nessus on a system where the client is installed. So that will bring up our graphical interface, and we can go ahead and log into the system with a user account, either the default user account, or we can log in with the user account that we have created, which really affords itself to various levels of distributed scanning. So we're going to go ahead and click Login, and that will actually initialize the plugins and go through the various client-server communication processes that will enable us to have the most effective scanning possible. Okay, so we've successfully logged into the system, and it brings us over to our plugins option. And these are all the different scripts and remote vulnerabilities that we can verify that have been loaded to us by the database. So we can choose to enable them all, disable them all, or even choose to handle the dependencies depending on what's necessary. If we want to, we can even choose various pieces of authentication. So if we want to try a known password for a particular organization, we can go through that process here. We can choose the different usernames that we'll use to log on to various systems, and we can go into actually quite a bit of detail for scanning options in addition to actually doing the vulnerability assessment. So this is kind of an all-inclusive thing here, and if you notice, we actually have Nmap capabilities that are built in. So it'll actually run Nmap, and we can actually configure this so that it does all of this at the same time. So we'll enable that, and we can choose to do a send scan. We're definitely going to choose to do that. We can use the built-in TCP scanner as well. So we can see that there's a high level of configurability here. We can do CGI checks. We can choose to consider unscanned ports as closed ports. And ultimately, we're going to have to come up with a target. So we plug our target information in there, And we can actually go through and add rules to our users and configure various preferences about any advanced plugins that we've selected. So we can actually do UDP scans as part of our scan. We can go through TCP sting information. We can go through and actually configure service scan, RPC scan, and go through and check all kinds of options for the Nmap plugin that we've used. We can do very aggressive scan speeds, go through timeouts. I mean, there's just a ton of configuration options here. So basically, when it's all said and done, we come over to Target and we go start the scan. And these Nessus scans can take quite a long time to run. But it does give you a status update in the window and will actually support parallel scanning. We can stop it at any time, or we can stop all the host scans at any time as well. So this process can be quite lengthy. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward time again to when the scan's complete. So at this point our scan is finished, and we can actually go select our host that we targeted. And then we can scroll down and look through the vulnerabilities and the results of our scanning process. And these are actually very easy to interpret and generally give you informational messages or severity ratings based on what's running on the remote host.